engineering, we're using new technology. I'll be presenting today. I'm Jimin Han. I'm a 10th grader at West High. So before to now, I wanted to introduce myself a little bit before the presentation actually started by kind of comparing myself from before to now to see what my progress is right now. So before, I used to study Python, another programming language, and I made a small game through it, my own adaptation of like the classic like Hangman game. And yeah, that's what I presented last year. This year I switched to front-end development and I made my own website through it. I'll be talking about that shortly. So what is front or back-end development? If I was going to put in a few words, I call it website building or app building. Front-end's role is the overall visual aspects for a website using languages such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So in this image here, you see this part, this is the front-end part. It would hold things such as images, words, or buttons. All the visual things of a website is usually determined through front-end development. Anything that you would usually see when you first enter or stuff like that. Now, you can see that in the beginning, my actual presentation's title was front-end development. But I decided to go and introduce front and back-end development together because I realized that they go hand in hand with one another because for creating a proper website, both front and back-end development is needed. So back-end development's role would be to determine what happens when users interact with something. So after someone interacts with something from the front-end development, such as maybe a button, maybe they press on an image, or maybe press on text, back-end would determine what happens after that. So maybe it would link them to somewhere else, maybe it would move them onto another page. All the intricate like stuff out inside of the website is all determined through back-end development. So why is front-end development important? So in the beginning, like around maybe March, I didn't know what front-end development was. But later on, as I started to actually research and learn more about it, the main importance that I believe for front-end development is that it is needed for a basic internet experience. I would define a basic internet experience to be utilizing different websites throughout the day. And usually when you enter all of these websites, a lot of the visual things that you would usually see is all determined through front development. So without front development, you wouldn't be able to maybe see a lot of those images or all the text that you would usually see from a regular website. So without it, it's more convenient and more visually appealing with front development. HTML and CSS, a short introduction. When I introduced front development in the beginning, I talked about how it consists of programming languages such as HTML and CSS. And I wanted to introduce what HTML and CSS's actual role is when creating a website or front development, visual parts of it. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It determines what to present and helps structure web pages and tells the browser how to display content. So HTML kind of, by what to present, it means like it brings maybe materials, such as maybe images, words, things like that. And not only does it help like structure using web pages, it also brings those materials so that for CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, it determines how to present. So HTML brings what to present, and CSS, it makes it more presentable by making it how to present, changing colors, layouts, and fonts. So it basically gets the materials from the HTML and makes it more presentable, more visually appealing to the audience. So like over here, you can see that this is something that's this code connected from HTML to CSS. And you can see that I can like change small things like the color or the width. So it makes it maybe a bit more visual appealing or looks better from the HTML. Like HTML gives you the materials and CSS changes it into making it a better style, maybe cooler style. This is my own website. Yeah, so I'll be explaining it a little bit more in the next slide. But right now this is a small homepage that I added for my own website. And this is a drop-down that leads me to a link to another page of my own website. From here you can see a lot of icons. These are websites that I use on a daily basis usually. And whenever I press on them, it would hyperlink me to that website. It's similar to like the bookmark function that we use regularly. And yeah. So yeah. My website and overview. My website's main focus would, like before I actually started making the website, was to put the CSS and HTML that I studied to practice. Because I was already studying CSS and HTML to go into front development, but before I realized that even if I have the knowledge of CSS and HTML, I also want to gain experience within the field. So I want, because without experience, just knowledge is kind of flawed. You need both of them to work together. So that's why I decided to create a website. And what does the website actually do? So first off, it has a home page that leads users to other segments of the website. That was the first part of the video that you all saw. The second page links resources I commonly use in one page. So earlier you saw like all the small icons and that when pressed on would link you to a different website, whatever the icon's website was. So yeah, like I mentioned, it's similar to bookmarks that we use on a daily basis, where we just bookmark a website and we can just press on the bookmark to go there. But this time we have icons so that you're able to see where you're going, and maybe it's a bit more easier. What have I learned through all of this? So this is to basically sum up everything that I was like talking about today. First off, I think that front and back end both contribute to a website. They are both important because one part is the intricate visual, while the other one is the one that's more behind the scenes, but it still is very important because it tells you the other operations behind it. HTML and CSS's role, what to present and how to present. Each of them are both important in their own way for the visual style. And front end is needed for a basic internet experience because every time you access a website, a lot of the visual aspects would be grouped. For upcoming and future plans, I've decided I want to make further development on my current website. Right now, adding more pages to a website is one of my priorities because right now you only saw the first page, the home page, which is like the basis, and then I made a second page, which was the hyperlinks. But I decided I kind of want to add a little bit more diversity to maybe make my website a bit more convenient and more useful. I also want to add more contributing elements of JavaScript. Earlier, when I first mentioned front development with all the languages, there was HTML, CSS, and there was also JavaScript. But I only mentioned HTML and CSS because that was what I focused on. That was mostly what I got my experience on. I didn't have too much contributing elements of JavaScript, so I didn't want to include that before I actually put in more experience and got more research into it. Finally, I want to deploy the web page on the internet. Currently, it's not actually on the internet. It's with my code, I can access this, but not a lot of people can outside. So later on, maybe if I add more content and change a little bit more about the website, I want to officially actually add it onto the internet. That is all. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Okay, every single person so far has impressed me like to the highest level. This is extremely, I don't know. I had no idea you could even do this in like high school, so this is cool to see. And for everyone here, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is what is used to build every single website that you go on and most mobile applications, modern applications. So Jimin is learning literally the foundational building blocks of building web applications. So that's really cool. And for Jason, the last presenter, HTML is a tree, is a type of node tree structure. So that's something they can look into as well. Do you have any questions from the audience? Yes.
So front-end development, you're Jimin, right?
Yeah.
So front-end development is connecting, it's like optimizing user experience, correct?
Yeah.
So after our chairman is also an English, like humanities major, have you thought of maybe studying behavioral economics and psychology and maybe even art to improve front-end development?
Yeah, I've definitely considered that. I mean, studying both art and psychology are definitely going to be important for, maybe it would look more appealing if I did it this way. Maybe the brain responds to maybe this or something different. All of that would definitely be like put into consideration if you want to be like really good at the subject. So maybe I would definitely consider going into or looking into that.
Somebody who focuses on the experience of a user is a UI UX developer. There's an actual job for that. It's very lucrative. Yeah, people who decide what the button should look like, what the flow of the data looks like, that's a UX UI, and we need artists for that. Yeah.
In fact, UX UI department, there are more like literature major than the actual computer science major.
Are you a UX?
When I first started, I was actually a front-end full-stack engineer, so I was working front-end and back-end. I was building web applications for Call of Duty. And then now I'm a full-stack engineer in game UI. So League of Legends, I do client work and in-game work. So. But yeah, super important. Any more questions? Yes?
You mentioned that you were looking, you made your first game in Python last year. I'm wondering whether you have a preference between, because you've done kind of extreme text-based programming that getting too visual is pretty hard versus something like this where you're pretty much debugging in the browser. Do you have a preference over both? Do you know you might use one of them in the future more than the others?
Well, actually, I asked Sam a long time ago because I realized that later on I found a bit more of my own preferences, and I wanted to ask what would be like maybe a good place to go into, like what to learn about a bit more and study. And he recommended front-end engineering to me. So I think it's a bit more based on my own preferences, so I might prefer going into that.
The problem is, I don't know the front-end development, and to be honest, so that's my problem.
Jimin, you should feel free to ask me questions anytime.
We should hire him as
Yeah,
an
seriously.
instructor.
I'm hoping to see a lot of you seriously in the industry in 5-10 years. We need a lot more. We need a lot more good engineers. We don't have enough, and if you guys are really dedicated, you'll make it. And I think in 9th grade, building your own website and learning HTML and CSS, that's not an easy thing to do. When you first looked at HTML, you're probably like, you can't believe that this makes a website, right? You're like, I can't believe it. I have some questions for you then. So I know that you want to add JavaScript to your website. Have you thought about what the next steps for adding JavaScript would be? Like, what do you want to do with JavaScript?
Not necessarily. So I actually kind of, I mostly when I was researching and making my own website, it was from scratch. Like, I didn't really look into any other websites to YouTube videos or anything like that. But when I'm implementing JavaScript, I'm planning on actually looking through those sources and maybe getting inspiration of what to implement, how to implement it or get it from. Because right now I don't know the limits of JavaScript or what it could do right now. So
I would say there's 2 things I would recommend to you. Number 1, I would say make a button, make an HTML button, and make it change the number somewhere else on the page, outside of the div. That's a really good JavaScript project to do. And number 2, you should look into what's called AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML notation. Every time you push a button and you get data from a server, you're making an AJAX call on the front end. And it's critical for development of websites if you have any data that's being passed around. So those are 2 steps I would say you should definitely look into. The first one is a lot easier than the second one, obviously.